right, welcome back to Business IM. This morning we are sitting right in the studio with Kevin. All right, question is, what top headlines are you waking up to this Thursday morning, this rainy Thursday morning? Now, we do know that you're coming from the backdrop of a short break when markets took a break, but we do know the economy didn't take a break because there is a lot that's happening. So this morning, we are really going to get deep into some of the headlines that you're waking up to, but all of them are going to center around conversations and what we expect over the demonetization of the economy of the old currency. Now, some of you might have seen over the fatal holiday, or I'll say break. Some of your friends have the 1,000 shillings note. Some of your friends have the 200 shillings note. Some of them have the 500 shillings note. And people saying that we still need to look into issues anyway. Others are saying we still don't need to look into issues of the currency. I mean, every little one of them conforms with what the constitution says. But the contagious issue is about the 1,000 shillings note, whether it is legitimate or it's not, over the portrait. Now, we do know that the law has not really defined what the portrait is, but we're waiting to see what the courts say about Okiom Tara's challenge. All right, let's get back, therefore, into the major headlines that we're waking up to. Kevin, thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for hosting me.
All right, now, the big question that people are asking, therefore, is when you look at the new drive now to demonetize the economy of the old currency, should we be fearing about inflation when you look into the period that the government and the Central Bank of Kenya have given? Just 4 months now, they're really running down to 3 months now. Are we running into inflation? Should we be scared about the economy running into inflation?
Okay, when you look at Kenya's inflation, we have to look at two aspects. There's headline inflation and there's core inflation. Mm-hmm. The figures that most of Kenyans are conversant with is the headline inflation. Headline is driven by food prices and energy prices. So in terms of the headline inflation going up, I don't anticipate it will be any significant. Mm-hmm. But when you look at core inflation, which is driven by demand pressures in the economy, and these demand pressures are generally created by velocity of money. So within the next 4 months, yes, people will try to clean money as much as possible, but I don't think we are going to see a significant spike in inflation.
Yes.
So it will just be a short-term phenomenon. Mm-hmm. And the way this money is going to be spent, it's not really going to be that significant in terms of driving inflation going forward. So in terms of pushing the cost of commodities upwards, I doubt this move of demonetizing the 1,000 shilling is going to be a significant factor in play when you look at inflation.
Yes. All right, let's look at, I'm not saying this is confirmed, but the other way now, because of the avenues have been locked, because we do know the Central Bank of Kenya is also regulating the availability of the dollar to the Kenyan shilling at this time as we speak until the 4 months period expires. And we know that the other markets have also been put on notice that there is a demonetization drive happening in the Kenyan economy as we speak right now. So when you look at it, is it not over the other side, therefore, that once they find ways of putting this money that they have right now into the economy, all right? Like I know some of my friends were telling me that some of them are giving out loans now to majority of people. Is that not going to have an economy that has so much money, all right? Therefore, the other side is that we are slowly driving this economy into inflation.
Definitely there'll be a push to clean this money.
Yes.
And what will happen is basically there'll be a lot of money circulating around. Mm-hmm. In terms of the way central bank has even notified other central banks in the region in terms of just checking to ensure that Kenyan money is not cleaned through your financial system, that's a very good play.
Yes.
Also, last week he said that he's going to have a meeting with forex bureaus to ensure that dollars, in terms of when people go to buy dollars, there'll be a bit more increased scrutiny to ensure that the Kenya shilling is not, the money that they are targeting is not clean through dollars. In terms of, as I've said, inflation, yes, there'll be a bit of, there'll be a bit of that probability of inflation going up.
Yes.
But will it be significant? I doubt. Definitely there'll be a kind of a push.
Yes.
Yes.
So and you will say that it won't be significant given that the period is shorter, isn't it? So it's not that long enough so that we have this cash getting pumped in the economy for a longer time of the period. So for you, is the period really a determinant when it comes to looking at how this is going to affect the inflation in the economy? Because now we don't know, it's only 4 months, isn't it? When we look at this period and you compare that to inflation, how are we supposed to think about this?
I think the period is not a significant contributor.
Yes.
It's the compliance aspect of how that money is going to get back into the financial system. As I was saying, if that money when it's outside is not generating inflation, then even if when it comes back, it's not going to generate a significant level of inflation. It's only that some of the people will panic. I've had someone, for example, I had someone in Utawala, when that directive was issued, overnight he built a site house and all the materials are brought to the site. So obviously we are going to see such moves.
Yes.
But in terms of generating inflation, for me, I don't anticipate a spike in inflation.
I would just use your example right now for this guy in Utawala who built a site house and then all the materials came in just overnight and you have all your materials there. So when the government tells us that they're trying to get to these people who have money that is not getting back into the economy, that they're not able to tax, you know, and then you have people like your friend in Utawala now who has bought a site house, right? And all the materials have come in. Are the checkpoints that this government is trying to put in place so that they can nab these people who are trying to pump it all at once in the economy really that effective? Because if I've been touching 1 million shillings, isn't it? And then I can spend it overnight, I should be able to be asked where this has come all of a sudden, if it wasn't in a bank or it wasn't invested somewhere. Do you think, which people are they looking for? Are they looking for the top, you know, or anyone in the economy? Because I would like to think that every little taxable income is good for the economy of Kenya.
I think they're looking at everyone, but the impact they're looking at, obviously they have a target segment in the economy, which I think it's the top side of the society.
Yes.
But we see now when you look at Kenya's situation, it's so easy to clean even 10 million through something like construction. For example, when you go to buy materials at a hardware, you can use cash. If you bring 20 people at the site, to pay them in cash. When you bring stones and sand from a quarry, everything is cash-based. So the way the economy has been set up, it's so easy to clean this money. And that is where the central bank is going to have a challenge in terms of curtailing the flow of illicit money. Because once I go and buy something from a hardware, that money has already been cleaned. If I pay people at the site, that money has already been cleaned.
Yes.
So yes, it will be a challenge. Just to reiterate your first question, whether the time is a big contributor, I think time is not really an issue.
Time is not really an issue.
The compliance aspect.
It's the compliance aspect.
And sealing these loopholes, such as the way people can clean money through real estate.
Yes.
Yes. And for me, it's closing those loopholes, and then we'll find a way of nabbing these people.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Still on the same number. This morning we're waking up to the headline that bank agents across the country. All right. This comes from the Kenya Bankers Association CEO. All right. He says that they've been put on notice. All right. So now, because they have the data of how much you and me have been depositing and the periods at which we've been depositing, which they say could be actionable. They do know the trend, isn't it? And so if my deposits increase and the period of depositing also increases, now in that way, therefore, now these bank agents have been put on notice that if you, all right, increase the amount of deposits from your clients, and we do know the graph that they've been using, then we are coming for you, all right? So in a major way to even nap these ones who are trying to clean the illicit cash, do you think that is a proper way to start? And how effective is this drive from the Kenya Bankers Association?
In terms of the effectiveness, I don't think it will be that effective.
Yes.
Because you see, a bank agent is just like it's just a bank teller who's at the ground.
Yes.
So when you look at it, these things will be noticed way much later. because that's when they'll be able to notice the trend of the deposits of a certain individual, and then they'll notice that something is kind of unusual.
Yes.
But at the level where the bank agent receives the money, he won't be able to action anything. That's the challenge now. But I think now things will happen much later. Maybe the questions will be asked later. But at the moment, I don't think bank agents are in any position to aid the government in terms of noticing any dirty money.
Yes.
Because if I decide to send someone else to deposit money in my account, by the time maybe the bank agent, maybe I'll deposit today at this bank agent. Next time I move 10 kilometers away, I deposit in another agent.
As well.
I send someone to another agent 30 kilometers away. Yes. So these things will be picked up later. It will not be effective in nabbing the illicit flows at that point in time.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's look at another way to think about it. I don't know whether this school of thought would be used, especially when you're fighting bank agents on cleaning illicit cash. So now that's saying that you should be able to tell us that we've been having an increased deposit rate. All right. Now you do know that averagely per day, this is what I do here across this area, and the Kenya Bank Association is lying on statistical data. Yes. That we do know the amount of people who live here, and we do know the radius at which it is that you're working. So if you're serving 10,000 people, and then all of a sudden now you have more than 10,000 deposits therefore in a day or in 3 days, which is just a jump, all right, or a rise in whatever it is that you've been depositing, then you're a target therefore, all right, that we should be coming for you, and you should be giving us all this data, like who's this was deposited, all right, and how much have they deposited, and we'd like to know what they do as well, so that it'll be easier for us to go for them. Do you think that this would actually be used as the data now to get these people trying to clean on little amounts and on increased deposits that are spread over the 4 months?
Obviously, that data will be vital.
Yes.
But the challenge it will be a post-mortem analysis.
Yes.
It will be an afterthought. So it's just the same way. If his work is to receive money, he'll receive money. Whether he'll raise an issue with the bank in terms of this individual has deposited more than it does, that's now for the bank to take it up.
Yes.
But I don't think as an agent they can stop someone from depositing. I'm sure banks are going to let their agents take in all the money that they can, and then when there's a post-mortem analysis of the cash flows that will be seen in a certain region which have not been seen before, then that's when they'll start looking into individual accounts.
Yes.
So why is this person, maybe this person used to only have a salaried account, but now there's a salary and inflows of like 30. So there are some things which the banks are going to, the compliance, the AML departments of banks are going to start looking at in terms of activity in individuals' accounts. So bank agents, they are going to be vital in terms of the data they'll provide, but in terms of action, now it will be to the individual banks, their AML departments and compliance and everything.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now let's just go down therefore and look at the way this issue has been handled in the Kenyan government. Now we do know that every little policy, whether from the president or from me and you, pretty much goes through parliament, and then the politicians have a go at it. Now we saw last week that the Mbadi, who was a member of parliament in the country, saying that we need to even now start looking at the Harambes within this 4-month period. Then now, if you are contributing therefore to an Harambe, the source of that money, who gave you this money, how much it was, should also be reflected in the books. Because then they're saying, well, you might be fighting this, but if I go to a church and give them 50 million between now and the next week, churches' books are not audited to that much, all right? It's another way now for us to fight these cartels or the illicit cash in this country. Would you think that's a proper way that the Central Bank of Kenya and the government of Kenya should be chatting way into that? Like, yes, in as much as you don't tax them, all right? But can you, within this 2-month period, that you're trying to get the money back to the economy?
Okay, if I was the government, first of all, for someone to have an Harambe, they need to register with the local chief. And then every contribution that you receive should be audited as well. Should be audited, basically you get the details of how much each individual has given. Because, for example, when you look at politicians, the way they dish out this money, they want to appease the electorate. So a church will be, and a church or any harambe will be a great avenue for them to go and show their financial muscle so that to appease to the electorate. So I think they should be increased in terms of how we should look at how the money that goes into harambes will be accounted for.
Yes.
So it will, for me, it's a great avenue for people to clean money, and for politicians especially to appease to the electorate so that they can get more votes and appease the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Another debate now goes on really about the validity of the 1,000 shilling note. There are conversations that, look, the only way to challenge this case is for the law of Kenya to give us a clear definition of what a portrait is. Now, some legal minds are saying, look, a portrait, whether it's even in a picture, and then there's now cases of a picture within a picture, isn't it? Can you still call that a portrait? Or can you not? And then the other legal minds were saying, no, a portrait, according to the definition of the English dictionary, which we do know that is going to law all the time, is what it is. It's not a portrait. We can clearly see it's not a portrait. Do you think this argument for you has got some substance behind it?
When you look at both camps,
Yes.
It has some substance to it. Now it will just for that's the reason we have courts.
Yes.
To determine who actually is interpreting the law the correct way.
Yes.
But according to me, that 1,000 note, the Kenyatta monument, for me it's just a monument. Whether they follow the spirit of Kenyans in coming out to the 1,000 shilling note, then that's totally different.
Yes.
But for me, it's just a monument which was taken together with KICC.
Yes.
And based on the validity of whether they followed the law. I think they followed the law, though I'm not a lawyer. That's my opinion. I think they followed the law.
Yes.
Whether they follow the spirit of Kenyans, that's another totally different discussion.
Another point is that would somebody go to court, therefore, and challenge the government as well? They've taken 9 years down the line since we got a constitution that actually stated what sort of currency we should be having for us to get this new currency that we're seeing in the market right now?
I think the CBK issued the tender some time back.
Yes, and we saw a lot of images going around and really beautiful notes, isn't it?
Beautiful notes. But even the process even started. I think Okiya Omtata went to case that the tender was not issued as per the guidelines of whatever he goes to, as per the guidelines of how one should issue a tender in Kenya. So whether that time period has been followed, even the constitution, some of the provisions were not really passed as per the deadlines they were supposed to be done. So it was not going to be something which was going to be done immediately. Whether it has taken more than anticipated, yes, it has taken so long. But the timing, I don't know.
Yes.
It depends. You see, there's a lot of things which have to go into play. We have to come with new currencies, public participation. Then there's an ongoing court case, which dragged the first time they wanted to roll out the currency.
Yes.
Then there's another court case coming in. So when it comes to things as per the constitution, obviously some of these things are going to derail implementation of some of the things that were laid down when we passed the new constitution.
The new constitution. Now people are even saying we don't have a new constitution, but we do have a constitution because it's been years and years since we implemented it. Anyway, the last part of this conversation this morning. Now, we've been seeing a lot of mergers and acquisitions in the banking sector. In fact, we are soon introducing banking or merger or acquisition week here on Metropole Television Business AM, and the markets are sure that we don't normally do. Now Barclays of Kenya has come up and said, look, I think the banking sector in this country, especially under Governor Patrick Njoroge, is really heavily overregulated. And that, they say, would impact on the performance of the banking sector as time goes by. And probably they're saying that that's why now you're seeing all these mergers and acquisitions as you try and see banks trying to get around some of these stiff regulations that are getting pushed to them. In your own view, all right, when you look at the performance of the banking sector 2018, 2019 now, Would you say that they are overly regulated? And I want you to draw your conversation to what has been going on since 2015. That is the cap interest, the cap rate laws that we normally now operate within the banking sector.
I don't think the banking sector is really overregulated.
Yes.
Even when you look at how the interest rate came into play, it was there was a lot of noise. Interest rates are too high. Interest rates are too high. Banks said that we are going to lower them down. We are going to lower them down. It never happened.
Yes.
So at some point, something had to happen. However, the interest rate cap was very drastic, and when that bill was passed, then it changed the banking sector industry as we knew. Some banking businesses models were really affected.
Yes.
For example, you had small banks which could attract wholesale deposits at a premium and then go and lend them to the economy, especially to SMEs at a higher rate. So when the rate cap came, it really destroyed that business model. So there was not really there wasn't a big point where instead of giving a tier 1 bank money, let's say at 8%, I'm giving a tier 3 bank money at 10%.
Yes.
So the risk differential or the risk premium didn't justify that move.
Yes.
So basically what happened is that amendment in the Banking Act really messed up the model of like 10 banks in the industry. And also when you look at these other banks, their margins started shredding. Their net interest margin started reducing. So basically the next move that was being touted was that there was going to be consolidation. So for me, I think this consolidation took longer than we anticipated. At least now it has started happening. So going forward, I think we are going to see other small banks being taken up by big ones. We've already seen NBK,
KCB also. It's touted to really go on very fast.
Because the two major shareholders, NSSF and the government, are not willing to recapitalize the bank.
Yes.
We've already seen CBA and NIC margin.
Yes.
So it's really a margin play. Instead, it's better you have a bigger book. You get exposure to a greater percentage of the economy than operate two different entities.
Yes.
I've already seen CBA making a move on Jamibora.
Yes.
So we are going to see more moves. It's either a big bank taking a small bank, or small banks will be forced to merge themselves and create a bigger entity and still play in the market they were playing.
Yes.
So,
and another question that I really want to ask you, I was speaking to the CEO of the Kenya Bank Association just last week. Do you see now, with the existing conditions in the banking sector in the country now, where we're saying you have to be big to be a major player, all right? Are banks with different interests getting forced, whether they like it or not, to merge, to command a bigger percentage? And when you look at it, what is that going to do to the banking sector?
There are some people from different sides that I've heard. People are saying consolidation is going to affect the level of competition in the industry, which I really doubt.
Yes.
The bigger the banks that we have, the better. They'll be able to be key players in terms of driving our economy. Because, for example, the amount of the amount of money a bank can lend to a particular individual is determined by the level of capital. They can't give more than 25% to one individual. So when you consolidate banks, it means that even in terms of playing in the oil sector and other energy sector, which require a heavy capital outlay, it means that now Kenyan banks can start coming into play in terms of funding these entities. So just remind me the question again.
Yes. When you say these mergers now, what does this say really about the banking sector? Are we driving the performance of these banks up? And when you have these banks that have different interests, coming together now just for the sake of forming a bigger basis and an asset basis, but for you, what does that say? Are we running blindly just for the sake of having a bigger base, as opposed to doing pure proper business in the banking sector?
I think it's all about the margins.
It's all about the margins.
For me, it's all about the margins. It was bound to happen. People didn't anticipate the rate cap will be in place this long. It seems like it's not going anywhere. We've seen Stawi come up. So with many innovations coming up, the only way banks are going to remain profitable the way they are and still lend to the economy, they will see more mergers.
They will see more mergers.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. With that, the business Metropole review concludes. Remember, the conversation goes online. We are asking you today, when you look at the 200 shillings notes that were launched on Saturday and the 1,000 shilling notes plus the 500 shilling notes, or let me just talk about the new currency. Do you like how they appear? Is that the best that we could do as a country? And you think legally they fit? I'm talking about the 1,000 shillings note. All right, let's take the conversation online. Hashtag business. We take a short break. Once we come back, Sumak CEO talks to us about the performance of the microfinance sector. Now, this is a statistic that you have to know. Of all the microfinance banks in the country, 2018, or the ones that listed their results, 2018, only 3 of them were able to post profits. But even those that posted profits, they say the margin keeps on reducing. So we are asking the question, what are banks like Sumak, who are the top 3 performers in the microfinance sector, doing different that others should follow as well? One of the best conversations here on Metropole TV's Business next.